Asheboro City Council meeting. I would like for everyone to please stand for a moment of silent prayer followed by the allegiance. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. Okay, we're going to open up a public comment period. Anyone who'd like to address the council may come forward. We would ask that you print your name on the pad provided and state your name. We would like it in the 2 to 3 minute range. We have a lot on the agenda. I didn't mean to stop you there. Come on up. But and we will, and it is more or less a time to share an opinion or an idea with the council, not really a question and answer session. And if there is a question that needs to be answered, the staff will follow up with you afterwards.
Good evening. My name is Alan Maldonado. I'm a small business owner. I live here in Asheboro for over 22 years. The reason of my visit is I've been visit the Sportplex multiple times with my grandson because he played soccer on that facility. And I can feel multiple times some people going into the facility to smoke weed. And I'm very worried. I have huge concerns about it because the Sportplex is a facility for families and kids, not to bring drugs or alcohols. I have a video, and this video was viral over TikTok on one Latino tournament. I'm Latino, but this kind of action is unacceptable. It's a huge fight into the Sportplex. Huge fight. I have a video if you want to see it. I have the video.
Well, we can't watch that now.
Okay, on my
But if you-
tablet.
yeah, if you forward it.
I'm very concerned because I'm a barber and beautician, and I've been talking with a lot of people, and some of my customers say a lot of people bring guns sometimes on the car to the Sportplex. And when something like that happens, like a fight, maybe some tragedy is coming soon. Especially on the winter time in tournaments when it's cold. Adults bring tequila or this kind of alcohol to get warm and play. And that's the way the conflict starts on the Sportplex. I've been visiting the police department. I've been talking with some officer about my concern because nobody's talking about it. And I don't want to see somebody get hurt on the Sportplex, especially kids, because it's a facility for families.
Well, I'm sure we will check that out.
That's the reason of my visit.
Okay.
And another little concern I have is I walk a lot on the city. And when I'm trying to use the pedestrian area, the drivers never stop. Somebody hit me yesterday. So I'm very concerned because I see a lot of elderly people walk in the mornings with me on downtown. So I want to request some signs on the pedestrian areas, and the drivers understand the pedestrian areas is for pedestrian, and when the drivers approach, I think it's a state law, they have to stop to let the pedestrian walk.
I wouldn't trust them to do it. I mean,
That's-
I know when we're in Chapel Hill, they do, or someplace, the kids just walk and everybody stops.
Yeah.
But, you know.
Yeah.
But I'm sure you'll take note of that as well.
Thank you so much. That's the reason of my visit.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. We will move on then to the consent agenda. Council, is there any item we need to pull out and discuss further? If not, I will entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move. Go ahead.
Mayor, I move we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Burt. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Cheek. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 5 is, that has been, continuance has been requested. I'll ask for a motion for the continuance.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Pugh. Second.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Heath. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
And Mayor, we will interpret that to a continuance to your next regular meeting in July, which is July 9th.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, item number 6, public hearings for small business investment incentive program, submitted by Mr. Brad Ivy. Nate, there he is.
Good evening. So we have 2 applications for the Small Business Investment Incentive Program tonight. Both are applying for the Building Reuse and Renovation Program. I'll start with the first one, and then we'll have some time for public comment. And I would request that you all approve the application and authorize executing a contract with the applicant for the requested incentive. So the property in question is 118 South Church Street. The applicant is Brad Ivy. He is applying on behalf of his father, Bill Ivy, the former owner of William Ivy Antiques. So just to give you a quick recap of the program, it's a 50-50 reimbursement program for all eligible building improvements, up to $25,000. And we expect, for most cases, 120 days from application or their first inquiry with the city to a contract being executed. And the purpose of the program is to increase taxable property value for the city and to improve Asheboro's business environment. It's especially targeted to smaller businesses that don't have access to any federal or state incentive programs. So as I mentioned, Brad Ivy is the applicant. The former location of William Ivy Antiques is the property at 118 South Church Street. It's currently vacant, and it's been vacant for the past few months. The total requested award is just under the $25,000 cap. It's $24,494.50. And Brad, he submitted his application on April 9th, and his application was brought before the Redevelopment Commission at their May meeting. So the main issue with this property is that they're looking to find a tenant for the storefront and the back storage area on the first floor. The main issue is that there are some second floor windows that leak anytime it rains, and they don't feel comfortable renting to a tenant until they can ensure that whatever they keep in that back storage room will remain dry. And in its current state, every time it rains, those windows leak and water comes in and gets that area wet. So for some context, this is Church Street, and as I mentioned, there's the storefront area and then additional rentable space for storage in the back. You can see in red, and then the storage is in yellow. That's the basic floor plan of the first floor, and then the leaking windows, you can see where the dotted line is, show the upper second floor where those are located. So it's leaking down to the back right corner of the storage area. So as you can see in that middle photo, 2 of the windows have already been replaced. There's 6 more on that side, 4 on the back, and then 2 downstairs windows that they're hoping to get replaced. This is a view from the inside. These are original windows in there from when it was a mill building, but as you can see on the right, that's just one example of where you can see through to the outside and where water can easily make its way through. If you look in the center in the left photo, you can see some rust brown coloration below the window. That's where some water has already come in and stained that area, so you can see clearly. It's coming in, and it's coming through that floor just below. And this is this is just underneath it. You can see where the paint damage has occurred from the water leaking in. Here's a better view of that back storage area where you can once again see that the paint has all come away. And like I said before, it matters because this is where any potential tenant would be storing any merchandise that they don't have for sale in the front of the store. And it would be damaged, and it's hard to find a tenant without fixing this issue. And I should go ahead and mention that without the incentive, Brad has decided that he would board up the windows and use stucco to cover them up, which would kind of be bad for aesthetics and eliminate some of the natural light that comes in on that second floor, should they want to rent that second floor area to a tenant in the future. You can see in the bottom right there that that's one of the windows that's already been replaced. That's what it would look like from the inside. Like I mentioned before, it's 10 on the top floor, 2 on the bottom. There's some information on the specs of the windows, but they're standard commercial glass. And as you'll see, they're also consistent with the building adjacent. This is the back of where Positano is. So it would basically just be matching those same upstairs windows and wouldn't look out of place by any means. And you can see on the bottom there, that's what it would look like if it was stuccoed and boarded up, which, as I mentioned, is unsightly. You might be asking, why can't the windows be repaired for historical preservation, remain the same sort of look, might be nicer? Brad explored this option with 3 different companies. 2 would not give him any quote. 1 gave him a ballpark figure that was cost prohibitive, to say the least. Basically, they would take the windows out, clean the frames, and repair them, and then put the windows back in, but they were much too deteriorated to do something like that. He still got 3 full quotes for the replacement, and he's gone with the lowest competitive bid, which is saving the city a lot of money on this incentive. There's just a additional comparison of the quotes. You can see the $48,989 is what he's gone with, and then important to note the bottom $21,461 figure. That's what it would cost to do the boarding up in stucco. And with the city's incentive, you can see that he'd just be paying a few thousand more to get the full replacement done, which makes a lot of sense for us to do. Oh, July 1st is the target completion date. That might not be possible, but it is important to note that they're ready to move on this project as soon as the incentive agreement is signed. So there's an 18-month window that they could get the work done per the program requirements, but should happen much sooner than that. So as I mentioned, without the incentive, he'd be stuccoing, boarding it up, which would worsen the aesthetics, make an inconsistent appearance with the neighboring buildings, make it harder for tenants to get into that upstairs floor in the future. And if there's not a full seal, then water damage might continue to occur in the future. It's more likely that that would be less reliable long term. So we think that this aligns well with the program. As soon as this work is completed, it's likely that a tenant will be in there. There's already been multiple people who have inquired about the property. And as soon as it's dry and sealed, Brad intends to get a tenant in there. It aligns with the program criteria and increases the taxable property, improves the business environment and aesthetics, and there's no other program like this for a project like this. So staff recommends approval of this incentive award for the reasons I've mentioned, and I should also let you know that the Redevelopment Commission recommended approval at their May meeting as well.
Council have any questions for Nate at this time?
No questions, but just a comment. Just want to thank Mr. Ivy for being willing to invest in a downtown building.
Okay. At this time, I will open a public hearing. Anybody wishes to speak, to address this request, please come forward. Hearing none, I'll close it, public hearing, and ask council what would be their pleasure here.
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve this resolution approving an economic development incentive for 118 South Church Street as presented.
Thank you, Ms. Heath. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Pugh.
May I make a comment?
Yes, sir.
Just for procedural purposes, normally you would have a budget amendment that would go with this, as you're approving the funding, but because of how it fell at the very end of the fiscal year, and that would be an encumbrance for this project, and both of them are not gonna be finished until the next fiscal year, you don't have that budget amendment tonight. We will put that on the July agenda for the next fiscal year. Any other time, you would have already had that with it. Just because of the closeout of the year, we don't want to carry it forward and then have to turn around and put double the work on the finance team.
And that's important for later applications too, because applicants will be able to request reimbursement as early as possible.
Okay. Any further comments, discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Washington, carry on.
Once again, we have an application for the building reuse/incentive program. This time, the property is 129 Sunset Avenue. The applicant is Neil Griffin. He's the owner of the building. And he's applying for himself, but also on behalf of Collective Interiors, the business that is hoping to get in there as soon as possible. So there's a picture of the building. The ground floor is currently active. Collective Interiors has a retail store in there where they sell home items, but they're hoping to expand into the second floor for a more appointment-based design studio for interior design where Amy could help them furnish their home with fittings and other things that a more personal touch with an interior design studio. But there are some repairs that need to be done to that second floor before she would be able to do that. Neil submitted his application on May 15th, and he's requesting a full $25,000 award amount. So Collective Interiors, as I mentioned, they've been a downtown business for 10+ years over on Church Street, but they've recently moved to the downstairs of 129 Sunset, and they're hoping to move upstairs, but the upper floor has deteriorated windows, no HVAC, very outdated electrical, and needs some surface improvements to the sheetrock, the walls, that sort of thing. It has been vacant for a while. It was formerly the location of Hall Knot, where they sold suits and tailor services, is my understanding. And then there were some offices for First National Bank in the past there more recently, but it's been, from my understanding, vacant, the second floor, for the past 15+ years. So it's a great time for us to step in and help out to get a tenant up there and make these repairs possible. So for context, there's another photo of the storefront when it was another business, and there's where it's located on Sunset in that red box there. So this is coming in from the back. That door you can see there looks out on the Bicentennial Park parking lot. The first repairs are going to be taking that short wall on the stairs out, and also this sort of display box area out, so that more natural light can come into that first floor, and adding a railing and making some improvements to those stairs for people who are coming into the upstairs area. Once you come up the stairs, this is the space that you're looking into. It's somewhat finished, you could say. All those windows are going to be replaced. They've had some issues with leaks similar to the last applicant. There needs to be drywall improvements here. That one bathroom you can see at the bottom left there is functional right now, but the rest of the rooms in that area need some improvement so that she can have an inviting space upstairs. You can also see in the top left where there's that single door there, there's going to be a double door so that the business is more visible once you come up the stairs. This is the main space where the improvements are going to be happening. As you can see, it's very large and has a lot of potential, but currently there's nothing in there. Like I said, there's no electrical servicing this area, or outdated electrical, except for that front window you can see. There's no HVAC, which is really important for modern businesses, and there needs to be some ceiling and wall improvements as well. That front box you can see there is where mannequins used to be displayed for the suit store, but Neil is going to be doing some brickwork and adding a much larger, almost floor-to-ceiling window so that people can see from the street what's going on in there. I should also mention that Addie Corder, the downtown development director, has come along with me on a tour of this applicant's building as well as the last, and agrees that what improvements are being done are consistent with historic preservation principles. So there's an overview of all the work that's being done. 9 windows replaced, 1 door, the HVAC, electrical, and then improving the interior walls. He's got 4 separate contractors doing this work. There's a cost breakdown for you. The total cost of the project for the second floor is $74,426, which puts him well above the $50,000 threshold. But the $25,000 that the city would be matching makes this project possible. We're going to have a business in there almost as soon as this work is done. Shooting for a September 1st completion date so that she can get in there. And Neil has been approached to do similar work in the past, but it's just not financially feasible. He has put a lot of money into this city, been a great citizen, and he's really not doing this for his own personal gain, but is doing it more to get a quality business in this space and help out our downtown. So as I mentioned, there's going to be a design and demonstration studio upstairs that will serve existing and new clients. There's going to be a long-term commercial occupancy of the space almost as soon as this is all done with, and it aligns very well with the program criteria of increasing taxable property, improving the business environment. The windows will be aesthetic, and once again, there's no other program that they could access for this work. Staff recommends approval for this project based on the reasons I've mentioned, and on Monday, Neil received a recommendation for approval from the Redevelopment Commission at a June special meeting.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the council or comments?
Again, just a comment, Mr. Griffin, thank you for your continued investment in our downtown.
Okay, with that, I will open a public hearing, and anybody who would like to come up and speak on this is welcome.
We'll say 1 minute's worth so that Mr. Trogdon doesn't gavel me down here or anything.
I'm ready.
Yeah, I understand.
I'm ready.
I understand. So, no, the entire downtown's getting better and better. And I actually waited a long time to find a quality tenant because I didn't want it to just be like it is. A lot of people want to lease that space, but their use really wasn't conducive to what we're trying to do. And so Amy's really excited about her business because she's got a long-term business plan. She's signing a long-term lease. She's committed to the building, and she's going to make it look better and better. She already has. She's only been there 30, 40 days. But upstairs is going to be really nice, and that's what I was looking for, somebody to partner with me that really could use the building for the money I'm willing to spend on it, because it really isn't about the return on investment that great. It's really more about a win-win for the community. So appreciate your help on this, and this program really does help make a difference. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Neil.
Anyone else? Not seeing any, I will close the public hearing and move on to council and entertain a motion.
Just really pleased that we're able to do this, and it is an investment in our downtown and in our city in total. this is a great opportunity. So I would like to move that we recommend approval for this building reuse renovation incentive award of $25,000.
Thank you, Mr. Burks. Second, thank you, Mr. Cheek. Any further discussion?
I would like to say that I think this program is really working. And these are the first two applicants, and they show that this was very much needed. And so I'm very pleased that we have this and we're partnering with the Downtown Association. I just think, I'm thrilled that we have two really good applications the first time around.
Yes. Agreed. Anyone else? Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm gonna do item C. It is I'm gonna go ahead and open a public hearing for this. It's, as it is on the agenda, it's the quasi judicial hearing for case number SUP 26-02. Mr. Evans, if you'll come forward.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, and this would be the appropriate time for anyone who wishes to speak on the request to be placed under oath.
Okay.
You affirm that evidence you shall give this council shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Mayor, if I could indulge the council, be indulged by the council for 1 second.
Brothers?
As the council is aware, you're stepping out of your role as a legislator and stepping into your role as a quasi-judicial official. And this is a hearing that will address the due process rights of the applicant to receive a special use permit for a billboard located at 350 West Salisbury in the Central Fringe planning area. Due process requires an impartial decision maker. And you cannot have a fixed opinion prior to the hearing that is not susceptible to change. Your decision must be based on competent material and substantial evidence. Competent evidence is trustworthy, reliable, and relevant evidence. Material evidence is evidence that logically relates to the questions the board must consider and answer. Substantial evidence is any evidence that tends to support the case for or against the applicant. Let me speak for a second to the burden of production. The applicant has the burden of producing sufficient, competent material and substantial evidence to show the permit conditions will be met. If this burden of producing is not met, the application must be denied. If the applicant has met the standard, and then the burden of producing evidence shifts to the opponents, who also must produce competent material and substantial evidence to show the permit conditions should be denied. Absent this competent material and substantial evidence to the contrary, if the applicant has met his burden, the council must find in favor of the applicant. Note that this evidence can be found in favor of the applicant or against the applicant in material submitted by the applicant, by staff, by opposing parties, or in the Asheboro zoning ordinance or the Asheboro land development plan. And as John will explain to you, you'll be asked to answer 4 questions. And this is a summary of these 4 questions. That the proposed use will not materially endanger the public health or safety. That the use meets all required conditions and specifications in the special use ordinance. That the use will not substantially injure the value of adjoining or abutting property. And that the location and character of the use will be in harmony with the area in which it is to be located and in general conformity with the plan of development of Asheboro. When you answer these questions, you must find the facts that have, that are both competent material and substantial, and your decision will be reduced to writing, and it will reflect your determination of the contested facts and their application on the 4 questions I've already described. And after applying these factors, when you reach your decision, you, as being guided by the evidence, you may approve the application with conditions, or deny the application. John?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
One second. Does anybody have any questions related to any of that? Well, feel free during the course of this. If you do, we'll refer to Mr. Brothers for any clarity on our end.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. And I do want to state for the record that I reviewed with council my summary of the applicant's submission on Tuesday, May 26th, at the series of council briefings, prepared for the briefing, and that is council's custom. This included a reminder that no information contained in my briefing could be relied upon at this quasi-judicial hearing, and I incorporated this into my agenda packet, which was published on the website on Saturday, May 30th, and provided to the applicant. So in this case, the applicant is Telebillboards LLC. The property is located at 350 West Salisbury Street. The zoning on the property is I-2 General Industrial. This property is also within Tier 2 of the Center City Planning Area, and the request is a special use permit for a billboard. The property includes one parcel identification number that is approximately 42/100ths of an acre. The existing land use is a parking lot. And as mentioned, the principal use of the property is a parking lot. There is also an ice vending machine on the property that has received proper permitting. So first, just to give a definition, which is coming from section 7.02L of the zoning ordinance for an off-premise billboard sign. That is any sign authorized by Chapter 5 of this ordinance, and that's the special use permit part of the ordinance, which describes attention to a business, commodity, service, or entertainment not conducted, sold, or offered on the premises where the sign is located. Signs meeting the standards of this chapter that direct attention to a business, commodity, service, or entertainment not conducted, sold, or offered on the premise where the sign is located shall not be considered an off-premise billboard sign. And the property is surrounded by primarily commercial and industrial land uses with some residential uses in the area. And West Salisbury Street, or NC Highway 42, is considered a state-maintained major thoroughfare. It has 2 lanes. And the Asheboro Transportation Plan indicates the roadway's capacity is 11,600 vehicles per day. The most recent traffic count from NCDOT for the average annual daily travel is 11,500 vehicles per day. Billboards are also subject to review and approval by NCDOT. If the council were to grant approval, the billboard would also have to approve the billboard. NCDOT would have to do that. So billboards require a special use permit and have certain special use permit requirements, including locational and separation requirements that are described in section 5.0519. That is the criteria for billboards with a special use permit. Staff has determined that the requirements in that section 5.0519 have been met. And so if we look at permitting for billboards compared to permitting for other signs, the billboard permitting is a separate process from permitting of other signs. that are allowed in the I-2 district, subject to general ordinance requirements. Billboards are their own land use in the zoning ordinance. And the property is located within the Center City planning area. Tier 2, as mentioned earlier, that is the central fringe planning area. And we do have a description of that area coming up on the next slide. The site is adjacent to Tier 1, which is the central business district. It's directly across West Salisbury Street from the central business district. It is also located across the street from the downtown National Register Historic District. And Section 4.07A of the zoning ordinance provides findings and goals for the entire Center City overlay district. Section 4.07D provides a statement describing the central fringe planning area. And so if we look at the zoning ordinance, this is directly from Section 4.07A for findings and goals for the Center City planning area. It states the City of Asheboro 2020 Land Development Plan describes a Center City planning area consisting of the city's downtown area and its immediate environs. This is the historic core of the community, bounded by a variety of institutional and commercial uses. In order to promote principles identified in the land development plan, such as workability, a vibrant mixture of complementary uses, street trees and landscaping, along with side or rear yard parking, the City Council establishes the Center City planning area consisting of 3 tiers. This is within Tier 2, Central Business Fringe Planning Area. The council's goal is to promote development that encourages a stable, attractive, economically viable, pedestrian-scaled environment, and that preserves and enhances the visual appeal of streets leading into and out of the Center City planning area. So the description for Tier 2, the Central Fringe Planning Area, is that it is hereby established to strengthen Asheboro's Center City planning area. This planning area encompasses blocks adjacent to Tier 1, the core central business area. Properties in this planning area, unlike those in Tier 1, are not readily accessible to public downtown parking. Coordinated development of a variety of mixed uses is encouraged. These uses include retail, professional and financial businesses, dwellings, institutional, industrial, governmental, and other public facilities. And like the Central Business Planning Area, the Central Fringe Planning Area is designed to facilitate coordination of future development, stressing sensitivity to urban design, pedestrian environment, urban open spaces, streetscapes, ample sidewalks, and street trees. Within the Central Fringe Planning Area, Section 4.07D6 states that freestanding pole or pylon signs are prohibited. And again, billboards are a separate land use from other business signs. Billboards are not deemed as a prohibited freestanding pole or pylon sign, but they are subject to a special use permit. So if we look at the property, it is directly in the center of the map, and you see the areas shaded in purple. Those have an I-2 industrial zoning designation. We have not seen any rezonings of this area for decades, so that is going back to Asheboro's history as far as the manufacturing on part of this area, where we have the industrial zoning that's shaded in purple. And the other shaded areas are red for commercial. The blue is an office apartment designation, the lighter blue, and then we have other higher density residential zoning. If you go further to the north in the orange shaded area. On the zoning map, you'll see the abutting properties, and I will state for the record that we did mail notices to each of those properties, including the railroad, on May 21st, and a sign was posted on the property for the zoning notification on May 20th, and both of those were in the time as required. So this map shows you where within the center city planning area the property is. So this is within Tier 2 along the north side of West Salisbury Street in this area. But as I mentioned, directly across the street, we have the Central Business District Tier 1 area. That is where the Randolph County Senior Adult Center is located, the closest property within the Central Business District. And then further to the north, across the railroad, we have Tier 3, where you see the cross-hatched area. You kind of have to look really closely, but it's the cross-hatched area instead of the hatched green area that denotes Tier 3. There are utilities to the site. There's no significantly severe topography on the site. The aerial map shows you a view of the property and the surrounding uses. The oblique map shows you a little bit of a wider view of the surrounding properties. And if you look on the bottom right, that's where much of the Central Business District is located, which is to the southeast of the property. So this is a photo of the property. You can see the ice machine and then the grassy area in between the ice machine and the building on the adjoining property is approximately where the billboard is proposed in that area. This shows you just another view of the property from West Salisbury Street. This shows you the view if you're looking west on West Salisbury Street, looking away from the subject property. And we'll have some more photos here later in the presentation as well. But this is looking to the east on West Salisbury Street. This would be looking towards North Church Street. You see the Senior Adult Center just directly across the street on the right within the Central Business District. So on the site plan, you do see the billboard with two faces that are shown. It is proposed to be a steel monopole structure that the actual sign dimension is 12 by 24, so 288 square feet is proposed here. The site plan shows 5 Hilary holly plants there that you see near the where the pole is located. This shows you another dimension from the engineer drawing of the billboard that is 32 feet in height. I will point out, and the applicant's representative may want to address this, but the application requested a billboard up to 34 feet tall versus the 32 feet that's shown on their plan, and also indicated that it could be lighted and future digital, as well as the 12 by 24 double-sided. So these are the requirements for billboards that are within the special use permit section of the ordinance. I won't read these, but they are here for reference, and staff has reviewed these requirements and determined that the site plan does meet this section of the zoning ordinance. So I do want to show a billboard that's about the same height and has the same dimensions. This is located at 2012 South Fayetteville Street, well outside of this center city planning area, and it does. So this is 35 feet in height, so it's slightly taller than what the applicant is proposing, but the same dimensions. So just want to show some signs that exist along the West Salisbury Street corridor if we're going from from east to west, headed from North Fayetteville Street to I-73-74. And the signs that you'll see, some of these would meet the current requirements, and some of these were built before the center city planning area was designated in 2004 in response to the land development plan and the goals and policies that I just provided you earlier in the presentation. So So this first sign is the corner of North Fayetteville and Salisbury Street at 207 North Fayetteville Street for Walgreens. So this predated the current ordinance. It is a pole sign. This is a pole sign that predated the current ordinance at 175 North Fayetteville Street, Pinnacle Bank. This is for the Church Street lofts, so this would meet the current ordinance requirements because of it being a monument-style sign and the size that it is. And then this is the Senior Adult Center sign at 347 West Salisbury Street as we're going further to the west. This is right across the street from the subject property. And then this shows you at 208 West Salisbury Street. This is on the corner of White Oak Street and Salisbury Street. So this one actually may be a little bit to the east. This one is at 330 and 350 West Salisbury Street. So this is where the subject property is located. You do see the monument-style sign that is on the adjoining property that the parking lot serves for the we've got central heating and cooling. This is Hunt Electric Supply. So this is a monument-style sign that has been erected since our current ordinance. Whoops, I'm too far here. So this sign for the gas station was constructed prior to the ordinance being in place to restrict typical business signs to monument-style signs. This is a monument sign at 515 West Salisbury Street at the Carolina Farmer Mutual property. This is at West Salisbury and Peachtree Street, so it serves 3 different uses. This is the sign at the Setwick Center. So this is a monument-style sign. So this was built after the current ordinance is in effect. And then this is 833 West Salisbury Street. This predated our current ordinance. This is the Bossong sign at 840 West Salisbury Street. And so this billboard that you see here at West Salisbury Street, west of McCrary Street, this predated of course, the Center City planning area requirements. This is not in Tier 2, this is in Tier 3. It is also in a B2 zoning district. So if there were no billboard on this property today, this would not be eligible for a special use permit. And also, just looking through some aerial photography that we were looking through, this billboard was present as early as 1982. So we have 44 years that roughly that this sign has been erected, if not more. That's just going back as far as we could find. So just want to point out some factors about the kind of the historic area here. The National Park Service evaluates eligibility of historic sites on the 50-year rule. And that means that a property must be at least 50 years old to be eligible for the National Register of Historic Places. So that would currently mean anything built in 1976 or older would be eligible for evaluation of historic significance with the North Carolina State Historic Preservation Office and the National Park Service. So what this map shows you, if you look, the area that is shaded, kind of hatched in red, that shows the subject property, and you see anything shaded from or in purple was built before 1950. Any properties shaded in blue was built between 1950 and 1975, and then the beigeish yellow shading is for properties built from 1976 and after. And so, so that shows you just kind of the historic development pattern of the area. Where there is no shading, there is no data. This was coming from the tax records. This shows you properties within the historic, or the downtown historic district. So you see the area that is in green with the hatching, and you'll note that the subject property, which has the red hatching, if you kind of look at that triangle where the railroad is located, just a little bit to the right of the center of the map, and then you go to the left or the west of the property, that shows you the subject property, and then you see that the historic district borders the subject property on two sides, to the north and to the south. And so here on the next slide, you see the properties that have been designated as a local landmark or cultural heritage site. And a local historic landmark is a designation indicating that the property meets criteria established by the Landmark Commission ordinance. It's important to the heritage and character of the community. Local historic landmark designation gives our county individual character and ourselves a sense of place, pride, and historic connection. A cultural heritage site and object designation is a recognition program unique to the Randolph County Historic Landmark Preservation Commission, and it is designed to increase public appreciation and awareness of the special heritage and history of Randolph County. So we have a number of historic landmarks here that are on the map. For instance, the Acme McCrary Mill and Smokestack, the Sunset Theater, Asheboro City Hall, and others that are on the map. So if we look at how this property is designated by the Land Development Plan in terms of the proposed land use map, it is within the City Activity Center, and that is defined as the historic core of community life in Asheboro. The city center designation incorporates a mix of commercial, office, institutional, residential, and public open space uses. Design standards for revitalization and new development efforts in the city center will help encourage a pedestrian-oriented mix of 2- and 3-story buildings located close to the street and containing an attractive mix of first-story storefronts and second- and third-story office and residential uses. Ample sidewalks and street trees and a blend of on-street and side or rear parking lots, coupled with complementary building types and public landmarks and spaces, will serve to create a unique and vibrant atmosphere, setting the city center apart from other districts. So there are some goals and policies that staff would like to point out that the council may wish to consider. We felt these were important in evaluating the land development plan for items that could be addressing this particular request. Goal 2.1, development that enhances our city's character and sense of community. Goal 2.2, development that is located in appropriate locations. Goal 3.2, quality design demanding appropriate scale and context. Policy 3.2.3, the city will require signs that blend harmoniously with the surrounding streetscape and other architectural elements of a site, such as requiring monument-style signs that match building architecture, landscaping around signs, and unified sign plans for large-scale developments. Policy 3.1.2, the city will participate with neighborhoods in historic preservation efforts, such as the designation of historic landmarks and historic districts in cooperation with Randolph County Historic Landmark Preservation Commission. So we do have a list of proposed conditions if council were to approve the special use permit, and of course council may add additional conditions that relate to the 4 required findings if council were to find that those 4 required findings are met. And so the first one is that in addition to the to any use permitted by right in the I-2 zoning district, the use approved shall be 1 off-premise billboard classified as signs, off-premise billboard, and poster panel, et cetera. That's the classification in the table of uses. And consistent with the approved plan and requirements of section 5.0519. Electronic changeable copy shall operate on a 5-second minimum delay. Maximum brightness level shall not exceed 5,000 nits during daylight hours and shall not exceed 500 nits between dusk and dawn as measured from the sign face. Prior to the issuance of a zoning compliance permit, the final decision document authorizing the special use permit must be approved by City Council, and the zoning compliance permit shall be issued in coordination with NCDOT permitting requirements for outdoor advertising. So at this point, I will pause. If there are any questions from council. That's a lot. Sure. Yes, sir.
I have a couple of questions. Is this the time to do that?
Yeah, or you want to do it? You can ask him now, sure, if you'd like to. Or do you want to, we've got, okay, all right. All right.
Counselor, can you advise, can they go ahead and start asking questions?
The council can ask questions at any point in the proceedings, or they can wait, until they have received the entire proceeding. It is into council's discretion.
Okay. We'll move forward, And we'll invite anyone here to speak for or against. If you would, when you come up, please sign your name.
John, I assume I just hit the button here.
Yes, sir, the right area.
Right here. Thank you. Good evening. I am Tom Terrell. I'm with the Greensboro law firm Fox Rothschild, here tonight representing Tallow Billboards. Mr. Ted Cooley is representing the company here tonight. And we also have an appraiser who is here who will present some evidence in a moment. I've been practicing just a few months shy of 41 years, 39 years of which I've done land use in every corner of the state. And the summary of your duties that I heard was about the best you're going to hear anywhere. It was spot on and it was succinct. But I do want to repeat to you that this is an evidentiary hearing. It is not legislative, meaning your opinions and what you feel is not part of the evidence. And this is counterintuitive, but Tallow Billboards does not have a burden of proof. It does not have to prove or convince you that it meets these standards. It has to present evidence that suggests it meets those standards. And that goes back to a North Carolina Supreme Court in 1974, and it has been repeated multiple times. I'm going to hand you a notebook in a little bit that says that. By the way, I do have two parts to this presentation, and the first part is a PowerPoint. The second part, I'm going to hand up some notebooks. I will go through those very quickly. If we submit competent material and substantial evidence that meets the burden of production, then under the case law, Tallow Billboards is entitled to the permit. That may seem, again, counterintuitive. Now, opponents can present evidence, and if it meets those standards, then you would weigh it. I would like to, before I go to the next slide, however, I would like to add a condition that I would like for you to be thinking about as I proceed through this. And that new condition is that electronic changeable copy shall be prohibited. I know that that was presented to you as a billboard with electronic changeable copy up to every 5 seconds. That will no longer be the case. I have that in writing. I would like to read it before I sit down. On health and safety, basically this is a question of what do the building codes do, and the North Carolina State Building Code is designed 80% of all the purpose of the building code is to protect the public. This is what it's about. You cannot build anything like this that does not meet the building code. And there is just no evidence anywhere that it would create a material danger to public health and safety. It will be far better constructed than that billboard you saw just a moment ago that Mr. Evans showed you that goes back to the 1970s or 80s. And that has remained standing this entire time. Whether this meets the zoning conditions and specifications has already been found by staff. This is an exact quote from the staff report. You have to make this finding, and I just want to highlight this for you to show you that your staff has found it. And we also have a second condition related to this. I will read it at the end of my presentation. We also have a market impact study that was done. It's going to be in the notebook that I hand you, but Brian Crowder is here. Mr. Crowder not only has MAI designations, but he also has SRA credentials, and he will tell you what those are. He has done a study that follows the Appraisal Institute standards. He does exactly what the uniform standards of professional appraisal practice require of him. And he has concluded, looking at other, what we'll call comps, there is no impact. Now, harmony is a functional determination. It's not about similarity of appearance. If I'm going to show you some pictures here in a moment, and you will see, except for some rectangular brick buildings that have been there in some cases 75 to 100 years, nothing in this area looks the same. But of course, your subjective feelings of what is attractive or not attractive, we have many cases in North Carolina that say that's just an opinion and it's not evidence. There is a presumption of harmony. This is created by our North Carolina Supreme Court. This has been a finding by our court since 1980. But when you list something in the table of permitted uses, that is a finding by this city council that any use listed is harmonious with any other use listed in that district. I want to show you a few aerials and show you the character of the area, though. If you look at this photograph right here, it's taken from a Google Maps. This is basically rooftops and parking lots. This, as Mr. Evans said a moment ago, there has not been a rezoning in this district for decades. It has looked like this for decades, and these buildings and parking lots have shown very little change, and that's what it is. It's a sea of parking and buildings going back many decades. The purple shows you that this is I-2. I-2 is not one of your attractive districts. You have decided by ordinance that this is I-2. It is for uses that are very intense. This is by design, and when you redid the ordinance a few years ago, you chose, and I mean like 5 years ago, you chose to keep this district I-2 and to keep all the uses applicable to I-2. That is not an old decision, it's relatively new. And this shows the relationship of the tract to the railroads. And it's very railroad prominent area. When you saw the photographs a moment ago during the staff report, there was not really a focus on the tall structures. Now there's the Hedgecock Tower that's, I don't know what, 175 feet, I'm guessing, that you can see. It's a couple of blocks away. But this tower is about 80 feet. It's not going to be much different than that. My frame of reference is a silo on my family's cattle farm. But that 80-foot structure is within feet of where this billboard will be, and the height of this billboard would be up. Of course, it won't be in the right-of-way and over the sidewalk. It would be much more internal to the lot, but it would be about equal to maybe that Cobra light, or maybe a little bit above that Cobra light, but it is less than half the height of this structure that has been there for a long period of time, and that power pole, until the city spends millions to start burying its urban infrastructure, like the lights, like the power poles, that's going to be there for decades to come. And not only will that be there, but that's directly across the street. Those poles are the exact same height, and you see those lines. That's what you see. That is what you see when you stand right beside. That view that's in those images has been there for decades. It will continue to be there for decades. This is right across the street. It's a parking lot for buses, a lot of parking out here. But you see there's a water tower. That water tower, I don't know, I'm guessing it's about a 90-foot tower looking at it from right here. But that is also what marks the character of this area. This is, again, directly across the street. This is south and a little bit west. You can see this is the view. This is what has been there for a long time. As far as we know, it will continue to be there for a long time. This is the backyard. By the way, I sat in the parking lot for 20, 25 minutes to see what the pedestrian activity was. I know that that's one of your standards is for this central planning area. And I waited for a pedestrian to walk down the sidewalk, and not a single pedestrian came down the sidewalk in front of this parking lot. But I did see two people walking along the railroad track. So that's apparently, for that one snippet in time, was where the pedestrian activity was. And then this is, the rail crossing, and that's looking at a slightly different angle into the backyard. And this is just across the street and up a block or a block and a half. But instead of looking at the buildings, I'm going to ask you to look at all the power poles, how tall those poles are, all the wires, the lights. And if you see the Acme McCrary sign just to the right and above that is a tall pole that has all kinds of electrical devices on it. And that's the character of this area. Now, I'm going to talk in a few minutes very briefly about conformity with the plan of development. 2 points. It's not conformity with the comprehensive plan. That's when you do a rezoning, a map amendment. This is that, and that's consistency. This is general conformity. It's a lower bar, and it's not perfect consistency. It is generally conforming to the plan of development. I want to make a few points here. In this case, it's the zoning ordinance that is the key document. The zoning ordinance was adopted and found to be consistent with your comprehensive plan. And more importantly, zoning ordinance is the law. It's not vague policy. And when you go to what I just pulled off of your website, the 2020 Land Development Plan, it doesn't define that central planning area. It doesn't say anything about billboards. Everything that we're talking about is it's in the zoning ordinance. That's where the definitions of what can happen can be found. It is not here. Now, in the table of permitted uses, this is an I-2, and I want to read to you and look to show you, this is what an I-2 industrial district is. I'm not making this up. This is just a quote from your zoning ordinance, that the intent of I-2 industrial development district is to produce areas for intensive manufacturing, warehousing, processing, and assembly uses controlled by performance standards. And I'll show you in a moment that telebillboards meets 100% of those standards to limit the effect of such uses on adjacent districts. So this is what the intent, and this again, this trumps the land development plan. This is the law that was enacted, and when you enacted this ordinance, you found that it was consistent with this, and it's a legal expression of this document. This is the most important thing I might show you or reference. In your zoning ordinance, it says, and I've got it bolded, it doesn't say you have to meet the intent of anything when it comes to signs. This is the sign part of the zoning ordinance, and it's in the sign part related to the central business area. The uses identified, and this is all quoted, the uses identified in the table of permitted uses, table 5.1, for the districts covered by this planning area are permitted either by right or by special uses, provided they meet all ordinance requirements of this section and all other requirements established in this ordinance. And I just showed you that staff has made the finding that they meet all the standards. This is telling you that this is the key thing. Do you meet the standards? And those development standards are what create the harmony and the consistency with all of your plans. Now, there is something in the development plan about signs that blend harmoniously with surrounding streetscapes and architectural elements. I just ask you to remember those photographs of those tall power poles, the railroad, all of those industrial buildings, and what it looks like if you were to stand on this parking lot. Now, if you take this and pull it up onto your laptop or your desktop and do a term search, these are the terms you will not find. Billboard, Center City Planning Area, Central Fringe Planning Area, Tier 2. It's not talked about. It's talked about in the zoning ordinance. So this is really not the controlling document at all. Now, I would like, and this will be brief, I want to hand up some notebooks. I'm going to walk through them and take about 3 minutes. To do that, there's two. Missing one?
Yeah, we should.
I got an extra. I'm going to walk through this very quickly because there is some redundancy, but I have the standards. If you need those in front of you, these are the standards at the very first tab. If you go to tab 2, Mr. Carruthers and I have both given you an overview, but I quote the cases here that say that it's not about opinions, it's about evidence, and it's entitlement if you meet the burden of production. On health and safety, the third tab, I go into the types of things that the building code covers. Everything from structural integrity, wind loads, is it combustible, consistency with the National Electric Code. They look at compliance with zoning and right-of-way, et cetera. And as to public health, I've never seen a billboard, I don't think anybody here has, that emits bacteria or toxins or anything like that. Now, does it meet the conditions of the ordinance? I have gone, this is the next tab, I went a little bit further. It says, if at any point it turns out that there is some inconsistency, then it is the duty to, for the site plan or the building plans or whatever plans to be brought into compliance. And I've actually made that a condition at the very last tab. Mr. Crowder's coming up in about 2 minutes, and he's going to present the study that's at the next tab. On harmony with the area, I have some of those same photographs, but I also go into what the case law in North Carolina says, and it's in a little bit more detail, but I wanted you to have this in the record. And then the next tab, general conformity with the plan of development, I go into more detail than I did in the PowerPoint about what is a plan of development and why the zoning ordinance here is your primary plan of development as to what's applicable when it comes to a billboard and this zoning district. And then finally, On the added conditions, I'd like to read number one. We officially offer this as a binding condition. Electronic changeable copies shall be prohibited. All previously offered conditions regulating the SUP as an electronic billboard are hereby withdrawn as being inconsistent with this new condition. And then finally, number two, we obligate telebillboards to make any and all changes to the site plan or the building plans for this structure if at any point it is found to be inconsistent. And I will add that your staff is not able to issue a building permit if any of the plans are inconsistent. So I think that standard has been met. I would like to ask Mr. Brian Crowder at this point to come up and to introduce his study on how this does not negatively affect adjacent or adjoining or abutting properties.
Good evening.
Evening.
As Tom said, my name is Brian Crowder, and I'm a North Carolina State Certified General Appraiser with over 18 years of experience, all with Hilton Crowder and Associates, located in High Point, North Carolina. I began my appraisal career immediately after graduating from North Carolina State University. Over the course of my career, I've appraised and consulted on a wide variety of property types, including single-family residential, multifamily, vacant land, commercial, industrial, office, institutional, and special purpose properties, including advertising signs, among others. I hold both the MAI and SRA designations from the Appraisal Institute, which is the largest and most recognized professional appraisal organization in the world. These designations represent extensive education, testing, and experience requirements. To earn them, I completed a college degree, numerous advanced courses, each one being 1 week long and concluded with proctored exams, a 16-hour comprehensive examination divided into 4 4-hour modules, more than 4,500 hours of specialized appraisal experience, including a detailed peer review of 3 randomly selected appraisals, a demonstration of knowledge report similar to a thesis requiring detailed analysis, full market support for every adjustment, and a formal grading and review process. The MAI and SRA designations have long been recognized by courts of law, government agencies, financial institutions, and investors as a mark of excellence in the real estate valuation and analysis, not just nationally, but worldwide. In addition to maintaining my state certification, I regularly attend continuing education and professional seminars to stay current on industry standards and trends. I've also served in leadership roles within the North Carolina chapter of the Appraisal Institute. I have been a regional representative, a member of the board of directors, and chair of the Real Estate Valuation Conference, which provides continuing education to appraisers across all of North Carolina. I currently serve as an executive officer of the North Carolina chapter of the Appraisal Institute as vice president this year, will serve as president-elect in 2027 and president in 2028. Most recently, I was appointed to serve on the board of directors nationally for the Appraisal Institute Education and Relief Foundation to help guide its mission and outreach efforts. AIERF is the charitable arm of the Appraisal Institute, providing financial assistance to appraisers facing hardships such as natural disasters, medical emergencies, or other unforeseen personal crises, while also supporting education, research, and scholarships within the profession, not just nationally but worldwide. I was also honored to be recognized by the Triad Business Journal's 2024 Class of 40 Leaders Under 40, and was the recipient of the North Carolina chapter of the Appraisal Institute Innovator Award in 2025.
Mayor Trogdon, I'm rising to ask that the council recognize Mr. Crowder as an expert in the appraisal of properties and on the effect one property has on adjoining properties.
Consensus.
Thank you for looking to me, Mayor. Mr. Crowder has laid a proper foundation, and the tender is appropriate, more formal than often done, and I would not advise the board to have any concern about his testimony.
Thank you.
Thank you, Council. As Tom mentioned, I was asked to complete a market impact study on this property. or for the proposed advertising sign at 350 West Salisbury Street. This was not an appraisal assignment to determine the market value of the subject property or any neighboring property. Rather, it was a consulting assignment to evaluate whether the proposed advertising sign, if completed as proposed, would substantially injure the value of adjoining or abutting property and whether it would be in harmony within the area it is to be located. To reach my conclusions, I applied methodologies that are consistent with the standards and practices of the Appraisal Standards Board and conform to the Uniform Standards of Professional Appraisal Practice, commonly referred to as USPAP. I also reviewed the City of Asheboro special use permit standards relevant to my field of expertise, specifically whether the proposed use would substantially injure adjoining or abutting properties and whether it would be in harmony with the surrounding area. Using these standards, I performed analyses consistent with accepted appraisal techniques, including paired sales analysis. I studied properties that sold in proximity to advertising signs or other visually similar external influences and compared them to similar properties in the same broader market area that were far enough away so that the external influence would not be expected to affect the sale. That is a standard way appraisers test whether the market reflects any measurable loss in value attributable to a particular outside factor. In appraisal terminology, a potentially negative outside influence is referred to as external obsolescence. In evaluating whether a proposed advertising sign could create that type of influence, I considered factors such as traffic, odor, noise, environmental impact, and visual appearance. In my professional opinion, a sign of the type proposed here does not create traffic, odor, noise, and the visual impact must be judged in the context of the existing corridor and supported by market data rather than speculation or unsupported opinion. Because residential properties tend to be among the most sensitive property types to external influences, they provide a conservative benchmark for this kind of study. If the market does not show measurable harm to residential properties located near comparable signage or similar external factors, the conclusion that commercial, industrial, office, and other mixed-use properties in the subject area would be at least as resistant, if not more so, than any claimed adverse impacted is supported. My study included 5 paired sales analyses involving properties near advertising signs or other comparable external visual influences, including advertising signs, a water tower, a commercial retail use with prominent signage, and a cell tower with overhead power lines directly behind a residence. These examples were selected to test whether the market shows measurable resistance to external influences that are similar to, or in some cases more visually prominent than the proposed sign at 350 West Salisbury Street. The market data in my study shows that properties adjoining, abutting, or in close proximity to those types of external influences sold within the range indicated by comparable properties that were not similarly affected. In other words, I found no measurable market evidence that proximity to those external factors caused a reduction in sales price, marketability, or utility. Under the Asheboro zoning ordinance, the relevant question is whether there would be substantial injury to adjoining or abutting property values, and my analysis found no evidence of substantial injury. These findings are consistent with my experience in numerous appraisals I've completed near similar external factors. Based on the objective data I analyzed, my inspection of the subject site, my review of the proposed plans, and my study of the surrounding area, it is my professional opinion that the proposed advertising sign at 350 West Salisbury Street, if developed as proposed, will not substantially injure the value of adjoining or abutting properties and will be in harmony with the area in which it is to be located. In my opinion, the evidence supports not only a finding of no substantial injury, but no measurable injury at all. That conclusion is also consistent with the character of the subject area. The site is located along West Salisbury Street in an established corridor that includes industrial, commercial, office, transportation-related, and other non-residential influences, along with existing signage along the street. The nearest residentially zoned property is more than 500 feet away. In addition, the site, as Tom mentioned, contains an existing utility pole adjacent to the ice machine, which appears to be approximately 80 feet in height. In that context, the proposed sign is consistent with the development pattern and visual environment of the area, and in my opinion, as an appraiser, is in harmony with its surroundings. My opinion is based on the plan submitted to me and assumes that the proposed sign will be constructed in substantial accordance with those plans. Subject to that assumption, those are my conclusions. Accordingly, it is my professional opinion that the proposed sign satisfies the applicable appraisal-related considerations of compatibility and lack of measurable adverse market impact. Thank you for the time, and I am pleased to answer any questions you may have.
Council? Thank you.
I will close with this comment. This is a sign that actually creates and provides continuity along this corridor. It's State Route 42. It is not a pedestrian route. It is an industrial area that has been there for many, many, many decades and will continue to be there, and that this is consistent with the character. It is consistent with the plan. We have produced material, competent material, and substantial evidence. I think there is in fact, I'm confident that there is an entitlement at this point. The question is, will there be opposition evidence that equally meets those standards? My good friend Reynolds Neely is here. I saw him come in the door and he just got sworn in. Mr. Neely has been with me in many public hearings over the years, and he knows that what happens sometimes is you get cross-examined. That is part and parcel of a quasi-judicial hearing. I may not, and I may. I will have to wait until I hear what Mr. Neely says, but it's always good to see you, Reynolds. May see you back up here. If you have questions about how cross-examination works, your attorney is one of the best, and he will explain.
Anyone else care to speak?
Yes, sir. Thank you for the introduction, Tom. I am Reynolds Neely, and I would like first to offer you sort of a bio or resume, if you will, of who I am, so that I may ask that you qualify me as an expert witness in land use and zoning.
Thanks, sir.
So that would be my first request. I'll be accepted as an expert witness in that area of land use and zoning.
So accept.
Mr. Neely, could you just go briefly through your history and qualifications for the
Yes,
benefit
sir.
of the board, please?
1977, I started work with the city of Asheboro as a planner and zoning administrator. Over the years that I worked with the city of Asheboro until 2012, I wound up being the Community Development Division Director. During that time, we updated zoning ordinances, land use plans, and at the time of creating the division, we had planning, community development, zoning, subdivision, building inspections, fire inspections, code enforcement, communication, and marketing, all under my purview. The time I was working here, I was also doing some consulting work, and since 1995, I served as a consultant to the town of Liberty. Upon retiring here, I was pretty much a full-time consultant until I retired again in 2024 from the town of Liberty. I've also maintained a consulting service, which Tom has alluded to, in that we have worked together on many cases where we have defended property owners' rights in cases like this. I have done over a dozen of those where I've been qualified as an expert land use and zoning person. And in the last year, I had 2 such cases.
There is no objection.
Thank you, sir.
I have tendered him as an expert.
Just thought it was worth hearing, so.
Yes, this feels weird. It really does. I did not learn that Tom was involved with this until I had made the decision that I would like to defend some of the work I had done while I was employed here. I'm handing out essentially what Tom had in his equivalent of his notebook, although mine is limited to like 5 pages, because I'm only going to address the one issue, which is the Army issue. Okay, before I get into the document, back in 2000, we created the Planning Department, working with the Planning Board and Redevelopment Commission, City of Asheboro Council, and stakeholders, a land development plan. It is known as your 2020 Land Development Plan. It has since been revised in 2009. It is essentially the same document. In that document, we discussed small area plans. I apologize, I have had dental surgery today, and I'm a little off my game. And in those small area plans, one of them was for the core of the city of Asheboro. In 2004, we proposed, after working with Planning Board and the other agencies and groups, a plan of development to be incorporated into the zoning ordinance, which was known as the Center City Planning District. It still survives mostly intact in your ordinance today. It was a predecessor to the work that Mr. Priest at that time had been doing, and others. Neil Griffin was around at that point in time, and others, where we wanted to renovate, revitalize downtown. Council was very strong in this activity, and we created this 3-tiered zoning ordinance set of regulations to do that. So that brings us kind of to where we are today. We have a test of what do those regulations actually bring forward to the town. And I would like, as if you'll look at it's numbered page 2. I don't know, cover page got numbered by mistake, I'm sorry. The introduction to my report states that basically I'm addressing test number IV of the 4th test, and that test is that the location and character of the use, if developed according to the plan, as submitted and approved, will be in harmony with the area in which it's located and in general conformity with the plan of development of Asheboro and its environs. Mr. Terrell has established very well that in this particular case, the land development plan itself is not the primary document, but it is the zoning ordinance. Refers to the analysis that the staff has prepared and did an excellent job with as part of the philosophies and thinking behind the district and where we are today. Where I will go is to page 3, and that is my analysis of test 4. And I state on that page that a plan of development is a set of policies adopted by a local government that establishes short and long-term guidelines for future growth decisions. The central part of the plan of development is the comprehensive plan. However, the plan also includes relevant parts of the zoning ordinance, adopted maps, water and sewer improvement plans, transportation plans, recreation plans, open space plans, floodplains, watershed regulations, and other related adopted plans and ordinances. The primary documents comprising the plan of development for the city of Asheboro in this particular case are the 2020 land use plan as amended and the zoning ordinance. General conformity with these documents is a straightforward analysis and is discussed below. The proposed billboard site is located within the Center City Planning Overlay District, specifically within the Center the Central Business Fringe Planning Area Tier 2. The City of Asheboro zoning ordinance states in Chapter 4, Zoning District, Section 4.07, Center City Planning Overlay District, A, findings and goals. The council's goal is to promote development that encourages a stable, attractive, economically viable, pedestrian-scaled environment and that preserves and enhances the visual appeal of streets leading into and out of the center planning area. In addition to the City of Asheboro 2020 Land Development Plan, as amended, states in Goal 3.2, quality design demanding appropriate scale, important word, scale and context. Section 3.2.3, the city will require signs that blend harmoniously with the surrounding streetscape and other architectural elements of the site, such as requiring monument-style signs that match building architecture, landscaping around signs, and unified sign plans for large-scale developments. The city incorporated these concepts in the zoning ordinance, Chapter 4, Section 4.07D6, sign considerations. All signs in the central fringe planning area shall meet the requirements of Chapter 7, signs, for the underlying district. In this case, that is the industrial district. In addition to signs prohibited by Chapter 7, freestanding pole or pylon signs are also prohibited. A direct quote of your ordinance. The zoning ordinance, Chapter 4, Section 4.07D1, makes the relationship between center city planning districts and the underlying district's regulations even more clear and precise. Permitted and special uses. The uses identified in Table of Permitted Uses, Table 5-1, for this district covered by the planning area is permitted by right as special uses, provided they meet all requirements of this section being the central city planning area, and all other requirements of the zoning ordinance. It is clearly, this is my conclusion, it is clearly established that the City of Asheboro, North Carolina values the historic core of the city. The city, working with private sector and other agencies, has created development opportunities that have enhanced the functional and economic vitality of the area. It is also clear that the city has taken steps to promote development that encourages a stable, attractive, economically viable, pedestrian-scaled environment and that preserves and enhances the visual appeal of streets leading into and out of the center city planning area. By words and deeds, the city has demonstrated these goals. The goals and regulations established for the center city do not consider a freestanding large-scale sign as harmonious. Such signs are more appropriate for areas with large setbacks and faster flowing traffic. Permitted sign types and sizes are based on the goals of the land development plan and are the appropriate size and scale for this area. Therefore, the application does not meet finding IV or 4. In addition, it is generally understood that meeting development standards establishes harmony. However, the opposite is also true. Not meeting development standards precludes harmony. The fact that the freestanding pole sign, as proposed in this request, is specifically prohibited by the Central Fringe Planning Area Tier 2, therefore it is unambiguous that such use may not be permitted and the special use should be denied.
Thank you, Mr. Neely. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Neely? I'm assuming Mr. Terrell would like to come back up and.
I do, actually.
Hey, bud.
And Mayor and Council, it is absolutely appropriate for Mr. Terrell to have rebuttal moments here to present evidence.
This will not take too long.
You may have,
Is that yours?
it doesn't matter, I've got a couple.
Am I recorded well enough if I stand right here and speak?
I would move over in front of the mic just to be sure.
Okay.
Okay.
Mr. Neely, first I'm going to take your report and ask you a few questions from it. I'm looking at the bottom of, well, let me start at the beginning. The last time I stood next to you at a podium, I was introducing you, I think.
I think so.
I'm going to look at, point you to the bottom of page 3, where you said the council's goal is to promote the development that encourages a stable, attractive, economically viable, pedestrian scale friendly. You would agree that's a goal. That's not a regulation.
That is correct.
It is not, okay, not a regulation, okay. And then you, on the next page, at the top of 4, you quote and say, the city will require, and this is futuristic, will require signs that blend harmoniously with the surrounding streetscape and other architectural elements of a site. Now, how does it do that? Doesn't it do that through development standards?
Does that through the zoning ordinance. That was
Through the
quote
zoning
from the
ordinance?
land development
Okay.
plan, yes.
Then are there any zoning ordinance regulations this sign will not meet?
Yes, sir. The one that states that pole and freestanding signs shall not be permitted in the central district, Tier 2.
Now, Mr. Evans has made a determination in his capacity. I'll quote the statute for the record, chapter 160D-403B, that as the zoning administrator, he has said that this section does not apply because billboards are separately regulated. Do you disagree with that?
I disagree with that.
But you also agree that Mr. Evans is the one with authority to make that decision.
The council ultimately has that decision in this case.
Has this been appealed to the council? I think, doesn't the law say he has to say appealable to the Board of Adjustment?
Yes.
Okay. And then I love it when you quoted the section that I thought was relevant under permitted and special uses. This is at the bottom of 4. The uses identified in the table of permitted uses for the districts covered by this planning area are permitted by right or special uses, provided they meet all requirements, not goals, but requirements of this section.
Yes.
Right. And the only requirement you can identify is that you think that Mr. Evans is wrong.
Wrong in that the statement stating that freestanding pylon and pole signs are not permitted in the district.
Okay. Is it your testimony that this is not harmonious with the other parts of this area?
I did not state that.
Okay. Well, you said you were addressing harmony.
Right.
Is this harmonious?
It is not harmonious with the adopted ordinance.
Oh, okay, all right. Then we don't have to go through the documents I handed out if that is his testimony. So you're not talking about harmony with the area. You're talking about really its conformity with the ordinance, okay. Then we do not need to go through. I had handed them a lot of your old reports that talked about the functionality and it's just so. Okay. All right. Mr. Mayor, those are all the questions that I have.
Okay, thank you. Any questions?
No, I'm good.
Okay, okay. Anyone else care to speak to this matter? Well, I'm getting
Yeah,
ready to.
Mayor, if I may address the body again. So.
Yes, please, Mr. Carruthers.
So and first I want to thank Reynolds Neely for coming in after dental procedure today. It's really above and beyond, and thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, sir.
So when I first began speaking to council at the very beginning of this quasi-judicial hearing, I noted that there were 4 questions that needed to be addressed. And I also noted that when there is substantial material and competent evidence that, in favor of one question that has not been rebutted, or, then it is the duty of counsel to accept those as having been proven. And so when we look at the first question, that the use will not materially endanger the public health or safety. If you will recall, I think you will find that there was no evidence in the contrary to the evidence presented by the petitioner that public health and safety was not an issue. So I would urge the council to consider that this question number 1 has been proven. Then the second question, that the use meets all required conditions and specifications. And let me get to the exact wording there. I don't have it in my notes, but again, you heard from from John Evans that the Chapter 5 requirements for a special use permit, the 15 items that he showed on the board, were met. Now, what I do want to point out, and I'll come back to that in a second, but that is what puts this before the council to consider the 4 questions. Staff finding that the special use requirements found in Table 5 have been met only answers question number 2 of the 4 questions. And no evidence to the contrary. So I would urge council to find that question number 2, that the use meets all required conditions and specifications of Chapter 5 special use permits, in effect that is what the question is, has been met. The third question was that the use will not substantially injure the value of adjoining or abutting properties. And we heard again from an expert witness, well qualified, who has done an extensive research into these issues, presented competent material and substantial evidence, nothing of which has been proffered against this viewpoint. And so again, I would urge council to find that question number 3 has been proven. Now, that gets us to question 4, that the location and character of the use will be in harmony with the area to which it is located and in general conformity with the plan of development of Asheboro. This is where I would urge council to consider that there are contested facts, which simply means the petitioner evidence, when compared to the evidence of Reynolds-Neely and the evidence proffered by John Evans, and the evidence as existing in the zoning ordinance of Asheboro and the land development plan of Asheboro, they are contesting. They are not in alignment. And council needs to consider finding facts. Well, one facts are those proffered by Mr. Terrell. One set of facts are what are proffered by Reynolds-Neely, which could be adopted by council in their whole. Separate from that, you have the testimony of John Evans. And I'm going to recap it just briefly for your consideration. But before I get there, you heard Mr. Terrell speak that there is the presumption of harmony. That doesn't mean that you must, as a matter of law, find that question 4 has been proven. And when the courts have looked at that, they said, well, if that was the case, you wouldn't even have question 4. Instead, you have to consider whether the harmony and general conformity question has been resolved in favor of the petitioner or against the petitioner. You heard the testimony of Mr. Neely that it is not. And when we look at the question itself, is it in harmony with the area and in general conformity with the plan of development? One fact that the council needs to consider is what is meant by the plan of development. I would submit to council that they would find that the plan of development is referring to both the Asheboro zoning ordinance and the Asheboro land development plan and the laundry list of other items cited by Mr. Terrell as relevant to this proceeding. And also, I point out to the board that under Chapter 2, Administration of the Asheboro zoning ordinance, which is before you to consider, there's under special use permits, which is Chapter 2, Section B2A, intent, that council intends that the general standards and the more specific requirements established to be used by City Council to direct deliberations be considered for applications for the approval of special use. So we've had, I would submit to the body, some questions on does special use trump everything, or does special use also fall within the framework of the 4 questions that we now have reduced to 1 question? Harmony with the area and general conformity with the zoning ordinance and the land development plan. And moving on from that, as John noted, when he cited Chapter 4 zoning districts 4.07 D6, which is exactly what was also cited by Reynolds Neely. And the question would be, does the special use permit establish that it is in harmony with the area and with the general conformity as noted in 4.07 D6? And I'll quote, like the central business planning area, the central fringe planning area, which is this I-2 district where the property is located, that's been established, is designed to facilitate coordination of future development, stressing sensitivity to urban design, pedestrian environment, urban and open spaces, streetscapes, and ample sidewalks and street trees. So the question becomes for the council to consider, is this special use permit in conformity with the Asheboro zoning ordinance in that regard? Separate from that, he had noted that this same portion prohibits freestanding pole or pylon signs. Now we have a disagreement between our current zoning official and our previous zoning official as to whether or not one trumps the other. But that doesn't mean that there is not substantial, competent, and material evidence that the Central Fringe Planning District, as a rule, does not allow freestanding pole signs in many circumstances, and therefore the billboard is not in conformity with the zoning ordinance. In addition, we've got that signs shall meet the requirements of Chapter 7. This is undisputed, Table 7.1. Monument signs are permitted in industrial areas. Freestanding signs are permitted in zoning districts B2 and TH. Now, I honestly don't know what TH is. I didn't ask John, but,
Tourism hospitality.
but it's not the industrial sign. And then, again, the question becomes, is the special use permit in harmony with the area and in conformity with the Asheboro Land Development Plan? Now, Mr. Terrell is correct that if you conduct a word search on our computer on the Land Development Plan, the document that predated the zoning ordinance, that created the legislative basis for the zoning ordinance, that directed council since 2000 to adopt zoning and to consider special use permits. It's the predecessor, it's the base document. That you could consider that it does reference the, and bear with me for 1 second. Well, let me address this part of it first, that it does find that under section 3.2.3, that signs blend harmoniously with streetscapes. The question becomes, does a 34-foot billboard blend harmoniously with streetscapes? That is a fact you can find one way or another. Is a 32-foot billboard appropriately scaled for this area? That's section 3.2 of the Land Development Plan. You can find that fact one way or another. And section 2.2, is it the appropriate location? Now think about that for a second and consider whether across the street from the Central Business District, across the street from the Historic District, across the street from the McCrary Mills that have been converted to apartments that are part of Tier 1 Central Business District, is that the appropriate location for a billboard over 300 square feet, standing 34 feet in the air? I think, given John's photographic presentation of the signs on Salisbury, the board could find as a fact that no other billboards exist on Salisbury within the I-2 district fringe business district. If you remember, the grandfathered ones are in B2, I believe, not in industrial. So is that in harmony with, would a sign, placing a billboard sign on Salisbury? And and there's one thing I wanted to point out here, and just give me one moment here. It's eluding me. Here it is. In this section 4.07A of the ordinance of Asheboro requires a pedestrian-scaled environment. Is a 32-foot billboard pedestrian-scaled? That's a fact you can find. And does it preserve and enhance the visual appeal of the street in and out of the Central Business District and the Fringe Business District? Does it, as a fact, preserve and enhance the visual appeal? Because Salisbury leads in and out of this district, and that is where this billboard will be placed. And we know from the code itself that the center city planning area is inclusive of the central fringe planning area, which is where I'm citing from 4.07A. So as the board moves on, and makes this decision, these are the issues that you need to consider. I've summarized the facts as best I can as presented by both John Evans and by Reynolds Neely. And if the board wishes to find that Mr. Terrell's has met the burden of production and there isn't sufficient evidence of burden of production in opposition to it, then you would find for him as to question 4. But if you feel like he either has not met his burden of production or that he has met his burden of production and those who oppose this, Mr. Neely, because our staff is neutral. But as I pointed out in the opening, you can rely on the facts as presented by our John Evans, by Mr. Terrell, and by Mr. Neely. But if you find that has also met the burden of production, then you reach a point of balance. Because we're talking about the scales of justice. They start weighed against the applicant. When the applicant meets their burden of production, they reach balance. And if nothing else is presented, you must fine for the applicant. But because it is now in their favor. But if the burden of production has been met for the opponent to this, then the scales are in balance. And then you have to decide the weight of the evidence. The weight of the evidence is your province, I would suggest to you in this circumstance. And it is for you to determine whether or not question number 4 has been answered in the affirmative by Mr. Terrell through his evidence or against Mr. Terrell's client through the evidence presented by Mr. Evans and Mr. Neely.
Thank you. Mr. Carruthers? Sure.
The objection is Mr. Carruthers has absolute right to summarize evidence. I think upon reading a transcript that it will appear that it was advocacy and it was directive, it was not a summary. And I just want that to be in the record.
Okay. Okay, counsel. Is there anyone else? Let me get that and like to speak to this. All good, all in, all done? Okay, counsel, it would have questions. I know you said you had a couple of questions, they may have answered it for you, but,
I think those have been answered. I guess I'd like to ask a question of Mr. Evans. And that is, when we redo the zoning ordinance, or when we do a land use plan,
Right?
that is a guide to the future, correct?
Correct.
All right. And also when you, and it's the basis for the zoning ordinance. Unless you have a land use plan, you can't really have a zoning ordinance.
Correct.
That's actually been by law.
Correct. That's
So-
correct.
In developing the zoning ordinance, you can do things like this fringe, the traditional central business district, and then you can add this fringe thing, which was intentionally done in the zoning ordinance. So that guides our decisions too. I just want to make sure that guides our decision too. And one question is, once you do a land use plan, you don't go back and rezone all the property that's, say the land use plan calls for this area to be commercial, you don't just go in there and it's residential now and zone it commercial. You wait until someone requests it. So your land use plan is guiding future development. It's not saying, and the other question I want to ask you, is this property ever been used for industrial? Has the use always been commercial?
To my knowledge, the property in question, the .47 acre tract, I'm not aware of an industrial use of that property.
Okay, so that's why I'm asking these questions, is that you really don't move, the land use plan is a guide
Correct.
for the future. It's not addressing the current, we're gonna make everything the way we planned it. That we wait for someone to come in.
Correct. I agree with your assessment in the beginning,
so
and
okay.
that's correct. And we don't do that because it could create unintended consequences of a use that is legal becoming a non-conforming use, and those types of situations that can happen. So,
So I'm just trying to say what the land use plan, make sure I understand that the land use, it guides future development, and also in the zoning ordinance, you can put in things like the fringe central district, which, traditionally we've had a central business district, but this ordinance goes beyond and adds a tier 2 and a tier 3.
correct.
And so that helps guide this too. And the reason I'm asking this is that, because I think that speaks to whether this is in harmony, in question number 4, whether this is in harmony. So I just wanted to clear that up.
That is correct, and the Center City planning area regulations were, as you alluded to, created based on the land development plans, goals and policies.
Okay. And would you say that was also done because the city council at the time wanted this to be a downtown walkable, all those things pedestrian oriented and streetscapes and all that, and that's why it was put in there, so that would guide that development?
Yes, I agree.
Thank you.
John, I have a question.
Yes, sure.
I had written, and I just want to be sure that I heard this correctly. When you were doing your presentation,
Okay.
I wrote down that there's a restriction for signs that are not monument style. Did I hear that correctly?
You did, so.
Can you talk about that again?
Absolutely. So the sign, for signs that are not classified as billboards, for general signs under Chapter 7 of the zoning ordinance. In the Center City Planning Area Tier 2, the freestanding and pole signs, pylon signs, are not permitted. For any sign that is within the ground, it has to be a monument-style sign. Unless, in this case, this was a billboard, which is a separate land use under the zoning ordinance table of uses with the special use permit process.
Okay. And it's also been mentioned that the, Salisbury, there's a historic district that's bordering on Salisbury and then also north of this property. Are there any specific restrictions related to historic districts regarding sight lines or visual elements or anything like that?
Right. So those would be subject to the requirements of the National Register Historic District. So yes.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
Page 20 on Mr. Terrell's is the special use permit procedure information. Talks about the evidence giving, providing evidence that supports this application. On item number 3, it points out that it's a public necessity. We should have addressed that the first 10 minutes of the meeting. Is this a public necessity? my thought on it. We've lived without it before, can we live without it now, or is it a public necessity that we have this sign? That's my question.
John or Tom, do y'all want to answer that question?
John or Mr. Turl, would you answer it, whatever?
I would defer to the applicant on that question. Let me get it back to you.
Also, Mr. Terrell referred to several times about the power poles. They are a necessity. No matter what height they are, how long they've been there, they are a necessity. Thank you.
Counselor, I serve as staff just like you. Is it feasible that I may ask some technical questions? If not, I'll refrain.
I actually would not suggest that.
Fair enough.
Okay. I'm in a quandary. We talk about, they said special use, billboards are special use, their own little thing. But then, as said right here, that Chapter 7 signs for the underlying district, in addition to signs prohibited in Chapter 7, freestanding pole or pylon signs are also prohibited. What, you give it and you take it away. Who makes that call? If we got one saying you can't have it, you got another one says their own little special item over here. Who makes that call? Who makes, which is the legal way to do it?
I'm going to defer to our zoning official.
So our interpretation of this is that the pole and pylon signs that are referred to in the section 4.07 D6 would not be referring specifically to billboards. Billboards would have their own criteria, there that was on that list. And billboards are a permitted use in the I-2 district, subject to special use permit requirements, subject to the issuance of a special use permit. Also, for the center city planning area, unlike another overlay area such as the I-73-74 corridor, that part of the zoning ordinance specifically prohibits billboards within that language of the overlay district. And there is not specific language within the zoning ordinance of the center city planning area that prohibits billboards within that area. But of course, they have to still meet the special use permit requirements. And also, under those special use permit requirements on 5.0519 number 7, that talks to off-premise signs shall be limited to freestanding ground signs only. So that's kind of where that gets into allowing the billboard or the allows the application to be considered. If that makes sense.
I'm sorry, John, that didn't make sense to me.
Okay,
Could
I'm
you
sorry.
say that again?
Sure. So within the center city planning area, there's no specific restriction, unlike the I-73-74 corridor has an overlay district. There's no specific restriction within the center city planning area stating that billboards are not permitted in that the center city planning area.
And could that be because you never anticipated a billboard in?
Potentially.
It seems to me there's always a problem when you have a land use plan, and then you have a zoning ordinance, and then you have these overlay districts, and sometimes you miss something. And so in this particular instance, it appears to me that is conflicting. There's a thing for the central fringe, tier 2, and that it conflicts with a special use permit for a billboard in a district where it is permitted with a special use permit in the I-2. So that's kind of how things get messy.
Right.
So am I right? I mean, I don't think you anticipated that there might be a billboard. But we anticipated that there might be a freestanding pole, and we prohibited that.
Right, right.
You said,
So-
yeah, I'm sorry.
I'm just trying to figure this out. I mean, in the fringe, you're not supposed to have a freestanding pole, but nothing addresses a billboard, which is a freestanding pole, because maybe it wasn't anticipated. Whereas on the interstate, you anticipated that someone might want to do a billboard.
Right.
And you decided to prohibit it.
Right.
So I'm just trying to say that that's probably why, with overlay zones, I think that things can get missed on that. So that's kind of the way I'm thinking.
Sure, there's that's why there's no specific language in the Center City overlay area that says billboards are prohibited. And that's why it was looked at as billboards being a separate category under the table of uses.
But it
because
does
they have
say
their
no
own.
freestanding signs.
It does say that,
Thank
so,
And it doesn't say they are allowed either specifically.
right.
It doesn't go either way.
That's correct, so.
Mayor, I have a question for Mr. Terrell. In the section in the book that you handed out, general conformity with plans, you mentioned that you feel like this particular request fits with I-2. And so it says the intent of I-2 Industrial Development District is to produce areas for intensive manufacturing, warehousing, processing and assembly uses, controlled by performance standards to limit the effect of such uses on adjacent districts. How is a billboard producing an area for intensive manufacturing and all these other things?
That is a broad capture that says this is a district that is for very intense uses. Uses that have smokestacks that create vibration, uses that have trucks, uses that produce noise. A billboard is actually less intense than all of those because it doesn't generate traffic. It doesn't create dust, vibration, noise, or anything like that. But as a matter of law, this city decided that a billboard was an appropriate use in that district. So this is not my argument. This is your decision I'm reminding you of.
Okay.
Well, in that case, I'd like for you to balance the scales we're talking about with this necessity question I have. It's kind of been brushed aside here. I'd like to hear that. Is it publicly necessity?
We don't have to address public necessity because it is the second prong of the third standard, which is whether or not the use substantially injures the value of abutting or adjoining property. We have produced competent material and substantial evidence on that part, so we don't need to address public necessity. We have met that standard.
How have you met that standard?
Yeah, I don't understand it.
Through the market impact study that's in this notebook, presented and done by a certified appraiser who has MAI and SRA credentials that meets every professional standard, who has done the comparable studies and through that has concluded that this billboard in this location will not substantially injure. In fact, he concluded it will not injure. There is no evidence based on the methodology, the industry standard methodology.
And so you're saying that makes it a public necessity?
No, I'm not saying it's a public necessity. The standard is, or it is a public. If you look at the standard, it's up in front of you, that the use will not substantially injure the value of adjoining or abutting property, or that the use is a public necessity. What this allows an applicant to do, if, for example, you had a utility substation that was going to serve an entire region. You don't have to demonstrate no effect on adjoining properties. You can go straight to, or the use is a public necessity. And if you demonstrate it's a public necessity, you don't have to meet that first prong. It's an either-or standard, and every jurisdiction in North Carolina interprets it that way, and there are many cases that interpret it that way.
Mr. Terrell, so we go through all this, and then you add conditions at the end.
Yes.
Where we're all thinking this is a digital billboard that's coming. And then you add that electronic changeable copies shall be prohibited. I previously offered conditions regulating the SUP as an electronic billboard are hereby withdrawn as being inconsistent with this new condition. And then we get to your health. If I go backwards to your health and safety, and you say it's non-combustible materials, and you have here that the poles, bracing, and frames, I agree, those are non-combustible. So you're not going to put a digital billboard up there on that 12 by 28 two-sided. You're going to cover it with either paper, and I don't think they do paper anymore, which I think those that we saw on there that were non-conforming that were put in 1982, those probably still are paper covered. They may or may not be. But you're going to wrap it with vinyl. Is this a non-flammable vinyl that these will be wrapped with? Is that such a thing? Is there a non-flammable vinyl? Oh, yeah. There is?
Okay. Here's what I will say. If billboards were a material danger to public health, or in this case, to public safety, then this type of wrapping would not be allowed. I don't think I've ever seen or heard of a billboard burning.
Well, they burn in California.
But the standard, let me repeat, in North Carolina, and I'll quote one of the early cases, the Woodhouse versus Board of Commissioners. This is not a hypothetical, I could think of something that maybe might possibly in some universe happen. That's not a material danger. That's not a material danger by any stretch. In this case, billboards are subject to regulations that are designed to protect public safety. These are not regulations that are controlled by the billboard industry. They are done by building code councils. They are to a great extent uniform across the country. They're very stringent. And in any case, they've gotten more stringent, especially when it comes to pylon signs. So meeting all of those standards means, by definition, you are not going to be a material danger to public health and safety. Otherwise, you have to challenge the building code and say the building code is no good.
So there will be no digital component?
That is correct. I'm going to say this one more time.
Okay.
There will be no digital
I'll
component.
just clarify.
That will be no. We put it in writing. I said it at the beginning. There will be no digital component. You can add that as a condition. It would be just a billboard at a much lower height than the other taller structures and compliant with every single requirement in your ordinance.
Let me ask counsel, do we have a requirement as to how often we change out that these have to be changed out? The material, whether it's paper or vinyl, do we have a requirement on there? And
There is not.
Anywhere.
That has not been a condition that has been suggested by staff. The council can add their own conditions as to construction or, as I mentioned, council can approve, council can deny, or council can approve with conditions. And Mr. Terrell's already offered that as building codes change, they will update the signs. That was something that he did say. I want to be fair to him. But if council wants to add additional conditions as to the construction of the sign and, for example, flammability, because you brought that up, it could be done, as could other conditions which you may want to consider to make it, in your view, more appropriate, such as size.
Can we dictate height? I know we can go up to 34. He's saying he's gonna do 32. Can we dictate a lower level?
In my
as a
opinion, yes.
condition?
Yes, in my opinion.
Okay. Does anyone know the height of the building next to it?
Photo shows it to be a one-story building, I
Yeah.
believe.
Probably 12 feet,
Okay.
I would guess. I mean,
Just curious.
I have it in my PowerPoint if you'd like to put that up. Photo of the, right there, that's.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe a little taller than that. Okay, anybody got any more questions? For our experts? Okay, I'm gonna close the public hearing. And ask the council if there is a motion. Don't everybody jump on it once.
I'd like to ask a question. If we do make a motion and we, we have to address
Are we
these four
directing this to
things.
Tom?
Yeah.
Okay, okay,
Yeah, if you
okay.
don't mind.
Yeah, sure.
If we do make a motion, we have to, these are the findings of fact, we have to have these four. So if we want it, I think it's been kind of consensus that the one we're questioning is number 4. So if we go one way or the other, we have to back that up by, why we think it's that way, correct?
Correct.
Is this an appropriate time to add conditions if we want to?
Yes. Or for you, at least to
Before we vote.
discuss
Yeah.
among yourselves what conditions you would like to consider.
Okay, we're talking to group tonight, yeah.
Well, I'll just say, I'm concerned about meeting number 4, being harmonious with the area, general conformity with the plan of development of Asheboro because of the conflicting, we have this overlay district which seems to conflict with where billboards can go. They can go in districts and they have to meet these requirements. So I think we have a conflict there, and I feel that I don't believe we can meet the 4. I don't think it's in harmony because of it doesn't conform with the land, the Tier 2 central business fringe, which is in the zoning ordinance. There just seems to be a sort of a conflict there. So that's where I'm headed, is that I don't think it conforms to number 4. We only have to choose one that it doesn't conform to. I don't know what the wording would be other than it's clear that the city council intended for this area to be special, to be a fringe area, near the central business district. It used to be you just had a central business district, but this is showing that we want to expand what we've started in the central business district to this fringe area. And it was intentionally put in the zoning ordinance, not even the land use plan. So I think that it is not in harmony because it does not meet that test of being in harmony with a central in the fringe, Tier 2.
So are you making a motion to deny the request?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Could I ask one clarification? When you say not in harmony, is that not in harmony and not in general conformity?
Yes, both. Like I said, it was, the billboard thing has been in there for a long time. And then you went with the fringe, which is in the zoning ordinance. And it kind of comes out of the land use plan in that the land use plan says we want this area to be, you know, the downtown, we want it to look nice, and a lot of things have been done. I mean, renovated an old mill, and now it's a residential area, and these things have become historic. And that's after this thing we had with the billboards. So I think that we missed a step there, and that this is not in conformity with that. And the fact that this was never been an industrial area, it's always been a commercial, that section of it. Now, there is a lot of industrial, but there's a lot of industrial that was never developed as industrial. And that's the dilemma you have when you have a land use plan and you have a zoning ordinance. So, yes, I don't think it's in conformity with the zoning ordinance because it doesn't conform with the Tier 2.
So your motion is to deny. I want to make sure we get to
Yes.
deny based on harmony and conformity. It does not meet harmony or conformity.
Number 4, yes.
Okay.
And that comes from the testimony of Mr. Neely. That doesn't conform with it's intentional. I mean, it's not only, it's in the zoning ordinance, which is even stronger than it being in the land use plan.
Okay, all right. Council, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Heath. Any further discussion?
Let
I'll
me
just
say,
add-
oh, go ahead. No, Council Lady, go ahead.
Okay. Just Mary Jane, what you were saying about just redevelopment, we also can't forget about the senior center, that building and that whole complex being
I agree.
redeveloped
I mean, the
and
whole thing.
repurposed. That's another great example in addition to the mill apartments.
That whole area. has been-
Right, exactly.
And it's right next door to this, you know, the central business district.
Right.
And, you know, just not even a block away, the speed limit goes down to 25, which is not what you, I know the NC 42 is a major thoroughfare, but when you go down to 25, that means it's, you know, it can still be a major thoroughfare, but it's just not inducive of something like a billboard.
And it's also right next to the historic district.
And my point on the number 3 about a public necessity is we've approved funds tonight to help 2 businesses come into downtown. And this is a thoroughfare coming into downtown. And I'm very pro-business, and I like to promote business. That businesses, here's where you can find what you need. And I think that's a necessity in a manner in which we hadn't probably thought about before, but it's a necessity. Most businesses that fail, they fail because they fail to market themselves. So here's an opportunity for somebody to market themselves. But then I get my concern about the, what's our word here, harmony.
And conformity.
When we get to item 4, that this is going to be just a panel. And it worries me, and I don't know if council will stop me if I say something I shouldn't say, but it concerns me that maintenance of boards that I see that are single panel like that, they fall into disrepair, they fade, and I don't think that's harmony with our bright and vibrant city that we have down there is a faded, ratty board, and I don't want that to happen. That's just my thought.
Okay. Any other comments? Any more discussion? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We are gonna take a 5-minute break, okay? Everybody can get up and stretch their legs.
No, well, budget is